Hello to all. I'm presenting the conference, the plenary conference that we are having in a few minutes. Shouldn't be more than what I talk. The conference by Asier Hilario. The title is Geological Heritage and UNESCO Global Geoparks, Memory of the Earth, Future for the People. Asier Hilario is a Ph.D. geologist in charge of the scientific management of the Basque Coast UNESCO Global Geopark. Recently, he has been appointed as the president of the IUGS International Commission on Geoheritage, and he is a member of the scientific board of the International Geoscience Program, the IGCP, of IUGS. He is an active member of the Global Geoparks Network. He belongs to the advisory committee of the European Geoparks Network, and is one of the few senior evaluators of the UNESCO Global Geoparks program. He has been the coordinator of the Spanish Geoparks Forum from 2006 to 2020. At present, he is coordinating the new IUGS Global Geosites program, as well as the Geoheritage Working Group for the IUGS desktop assessment of the geological sites of international significance for new aspiring geoparks. He has got a wide experience on geoheritage inventories, assessment, geoconservation, and especially communication of earth sciences and geoparks, you will see right now. He has done more than 100 talks worldwide and has written several books, scientific papers, and articles for the general public. Dr. Hilario Asier will present a broad reflection about geoconservation based on his own personal view and international experience. He will talk about the great opportunity of the renewed IUGS Global Geosites program, and he will explain the importance of the UNESCO Global Geoparks as key actors for the visibility of geoconservation worldwide. The importance of an emotional communication, a real social engagement, and a good capacity for empathy will also be critically analyzed as key topics for the future of geoconservation. So now I leave you with the plenary conference by Dr. Asier Hilario.
Good morning, everybody. I guess you can see me, you can hear me, and you can see my screen. If that's not okay, please let me know. Well, first of all, I would like to thank very sincerely the organizers of this exceptional Congress, ProGeo, and the Geological Survey of Spain for the great effort that they have done to adapt this Congress to these difficult or different circumstances. To be honest, I never thought, when I started to work in this beautiful geopark where I come from, the Basque Coast, like about 15 years ago, I never thought that I was going to be opening an international congress like this. So it's really a big honor for me to be here. I thought, so why not? Let's do it. Let's think, and let's try to share my thoughts and my experience during the last 15 years. So it will be a pleasure to represent my own geopark, to represent the Global Geopark Network and the International Union of Geological Sciences. However, I would like to point that I do not aim to say any, let's say, absolute truth. I probably have more questions than answers, and it is just a try, I guess a good try, to share some of my thoughts, some opinions, and some reflections. So, basic ideas of this presentation, it's basically four. The world is changing, and it's changing very fast, and I think we all are aware of that. And the second idea is that we need to reconsider our position on Earth because it's not sustainable. And in order to do that, the memory of the Earth can be a very useful perspective. The third big idea is that I think that we have good reasons to be very optimistic on the recognition on geological heritage. We never had such successful initiatives going on at a global scale. And the fourth point is that the people is the key. That's my experience. People is the key. And I will talk about a bit about the successful adventure of UNESCO Global Geoparks during the last 20 years. So the world is changing, and it's changing very fast. I would like to start my conference with this poem by Bob Dylan, one of my favorite songwriters, and I'll let you just 10-15 seconds to read it. This is a very, very well-known song, and it basically says that things change, and this is normal, this is evolution. But I will say that things are changing very fast, probably too fast, faster than ever. I would say that after millions of years of natural evolution and after thousands of years of cultural evolution, we have got to live together. So we got to live quite sustainably and in a beautiful places like this, for example, in Lanzarote. But I think that things have changed a lot in the last decades. Look, at the beginning of the 20th century, we were only 1.5 billion inhabitants on Earth. Today, we are 7.9, and we are expecting to be 9.5 billion inhabitants for the year 2050. So that's a big population. That's probably too big population. And apart from that, I would say that we live in a strange world. We live in a strange world where even now, about 50% of the population lives in big cities, and we are expecting that 70% of the world population will be living in big cities in the year 2050. I would say that an important part of these people living in such a big cities are somehow feeling lost in this labyrinth of cement. I wouldn't say that these big cities are happy places in the world to live, but that's the tendency. So in the year 2050, we will have 70% of world population, which will be higher than today, living in big cities. That means for me, this is another important thing. Where is this? This place could be in Madrid, it could be in New York, it could be in Lima, it could be in Hong Kong, it could be in Peking. This is globalization. So during the last decades, we all look more and more the same. We want to wear the same clothes, we want to listen to the same music, we eat the same food. So globalization is making us more and more similar in different parts of the world. And then we have our mobile devices. It has absolutely changed the way we live. It has absolutely changed the way we have our relations, our personal relations, our friends. And then it has changed a lot the way we receive information. Nowadays, with this internet in our pockets, we have a very fast flowing of information that comes directly to us in just 5 seconds. Whatever happens in the world, on the other side of the world, it will be in our pockets in 10 seconds. And it has changed very much the way we look to the world. So it has changed very much our glasses. And I would say that all that together has put us in the center of the photo. We want to put our face in the middle of beautiful pictures of beautiful sceneries like this. And it did not happen before. And that's because we have a mobile device, because we can take a picture and because we can share it, because we can say, here I am, here I'm in the middle of the Grand Canyon. So you want to put your face in the middle of the picture. This is something that we also should consider while we are doing that. At the end of the day, I would say that we are losing identity. I have no doubt on that. We are losing identity. We are losing focus. We are losing initiative. We are losing authenticity. But it wouldn't be any problem. It would be just our problem. But have a look of this graph. So our way of life has a very deep impact on Earth. Just have a look of the graph since the beginning of the 20th century to the year 2011, according to world population, to GDP, and to patents. And you can see how big we are becoming in the last decade. So it's very simple. We cannot continue growing like this. And this, let's say, way of life has a very strong impact on our planet. And there is even some idea of the Anthropocene, and there is even a working group on the International Union on Geological Sciences who is analyzing if the Anthropocene could be considered as a geological time or not. Basically, what they are analyzing is if there are enough sedimentologic or geological record so that this idea of the Anthropocene could be accepted as a geological era. In spite of that, I'm not really interested in if the Anthropocene would be accepted or not as a geological theory, but it is clear that our impact on Earth is as big as many of other impacts that has happened at a geological scale. So that's something that we should not forget. At the end of the day, I would say that what we are doing is we are losing connection with our Mother Earth, and we are losing that connection very fast. Our connection with our Mother Earth is much weaker now than it used to be 20 years ago. It's much weaker than it used to be 50 years ago, and it's much, much weaker than it used to be 200 or 500 years ago. So this is something that we have to consider. And I think that the memory of the Earth, which is the second main idea of the conference, the memory of the Earth can be a very, very useful bridge to recover that connection with our Mother Earth. Because we need to understand the complexity of Earth system. We need to understand the place where we live, because we need to accept that we just arrived on Earth, and because we need to reconsider our position on Earth. That's why we need to recover the memory of the Earth. I'm a geologist myself, as Enrique kindly introduced at the beginning of the conference. And being geologist has been the most beautiful adventure of my life, and I can promise you, I can promise you. I have been in very nice places along the world, and I got in love with the Earth more than once. And I think that this is something that we need to transmit. We need to transmit that we love our planet. We need to transmit an emotional communication if we want people to be aware of the beauty of the planet. But what I'm sure is that I became a geologist because I loved mountains. I loved mountains. This is a picture from Karakorum. When you are in front of such a big mountain like this, you feel small. And feeling small, it's a very good thing for the development of humanity. We need to feel small, as we have done in the last 2 years, not related to mountains, but related to some other natural businesses. So the memory of the Earth can make us feel small. Putting you in front of such a big, majestic mountain just makes you an idea of the huge amount of time that we need to build such a beautiful building. But not all the mountains of the world are such as majestic. These are my mountains. These are the mountains of my town. These are the mountains where I grew. And being geologists have given me the possibility to enjoy these, let's say, simple landscapes that are all around the world in a different way, to understand that these simple mountains of just 1,000 meters high used to be coral reef just 100 million years ago. And understanding that gives you the possibility to understand that the picture of the landscape that you are seeing today, it's just the last picture. It's nothing else than that. It's just the last picture. There were many other pictures before that one. And understanding that, again, makes you feel very, very small. So I'm coming from this beautiful geopark. I'm coming from the Basque Coast UNESCO Global Geopark. And we have this beautiful geological outcrop, which is called or known as Flysch. And I know very well what geological time or what the deep time means. I have visited very few places in the world where the geological time is illustrated as clearly as here. One step you make, 10,000 years, you go backward. Another step you make, 10,000 years, you go backward. So it's really a very good representation of what the memory of the Earth, what the deep time is. Just consider that our history, it fits in a couple of layers. So this is a very good place to understand the hugeness of the memory of the Earth, the hugeness of the deep time. I think we need to, by recovering the memory of the Earth, we need to admire the landscape. We need to just sit down and just stay for a long, just try to imagine how the landscape has been evolving. And this is much more satisfactory, if you permit me, if you know that if you are aware that the rocks that you have in front of you are one of the oldest rocks in Europe. These are, for example, the Lewisian nexus, which are 2.78 billion years old, some of the oldest rocks in the world. So I really never been so close to the deep time, and having that feeling has been one of the most exciting feelings that I have ever had in my life. So we need to be able to transmit this sensitiveness of the deep time. And by understanding the memory of the Earth, we can understand that geographies change. Everybody understands that the culture changed, that the different civilizations have changed, but geographies also change, the landscapes change. Nothing is forever, everything is just a matter of time. So time is really a moving image of eternity. So by understanding that the mountains that we have in front of us used to be an ocean, and it makes you again understand that the picture that you have in front of you is just the last picture of a much longer story and dynamic planet, that everything changed. Even one of the most important mountain chains that was built when Pangea was came together disappeared, was eroded, and we can see the, let's say, sandy sediments of that huge mountains. We can see them now in some different canyons in different parts of the world. It's just a matter of time. Even mountains of 8,000 or 9,000 meters high will disappear by erosion. Or we can also see some of the roots of that ancient mountain on the top of new mountain chains. So that's the Earth. The Earth is dynamic. Everything changed. We just arrived to this beautiful planet. Or we should be able to transmit not only the memory of the Earth, but we should be able to transmit that the memory of the Earth, it's alive, that we are, that last picture that we are seeing of that much longer story, it's a dynamic picture. Every time it rains, the mountains get eroded and grain by grain go back to the ocean, the place probably where they were born. And this is again a dynamic planet. This is again a good example of living on a dynamic planet. Sometimes this dynamic planet is traumatic and we have volcanic eruption or earthquakes. And this is also something that we need to understand. We need to understand to how the system works, how the volcanoes work, how the earthquake works, in order to avoid the risks that these geological events can imply. Recovering the memory of the Earth, it's absolutely necessary to understand life. And that's what we are. We are life. And it's absolutely necessary to understand how life was created, how life evolved along Earth history. It's absolutely necessary to see how life has been adapting, having different strategies. For example, in this case, in a very deep ocean where there was almost nothing to it, and there were some creatures that developed this kind of trace fossils. But sometimes, as you all know, the history of life has shown us that life can be dramatic and that life can change, that life has been very different in the past, and that there were some points in which life changed a lot. And that some of the most important extinction events on Earth history can be recorded in a very thin layer, just 2 or 3 millimeters, like this one, at the boundary of my geopark, like this one here, are enough, 2 or 3 millimeters are enough to record one of the most important dramatic events for life on Earth. But that was dramatic for dinosaurs and 70% of the biota. But in contrast, it was a great opportunity for other species, for example, mammals. So probably if that meteoritic impact would not happen 66 million years ago in Yucatan, most probably we will not be here. So if we go into the detail of that very thin layer, we are going to see things like this, beautiful things like this. These are macrotegites that came from the melted material of the impact in Yucatan directly to the Basque coast. So I would say the memory of the Earth, it's so accurate. So almost everything is written in the rocks. So the only thing we need is just we need to learn the language of the memory of the Earth. It is as accurate as this. And I think this picture, it's a very good example of that. Recovering the memory of the Earth, it's not only useful to understand the evolution of life, but it's also useful to understand that we just arrived, to understand who we are, and to understand how our species has been evolving in the last thousands of years. And this is also basic to reconsider our position on Earth. That, however, we just arrived, but however, our capacity to let's say, change most of the systems, ecosystems on Earth has been huge. This is a estuary of Bilbao, for example, but it could be extrapolated to many other estuaries of the world or many places in the world. I would say that there is not 1 square kilometer which is in a natural way. So our capacity to destroy, I was going to say change, but it's basically destroy the environment, has been absolutely unbelievable. And as a consequence of that, now we have to face one of the most important challenges that we never had to face as a humanity, and we have to do it together. This is climate change. And the memory of the Earth, it's basic because we need to understand which is the context of climate change. We need to understand how the climate has been working during the last thousands of years or even millions of years. We have beautiful glaciers like this, for example, in Italy, and we are seeing that the glaciers are shrinking, are becoming smaller, are disappearing, like for example in the Pyrenees. So the world will be different. We will have a world without glaciers in some decades, or at least some mountain chains without glaciers in some decades. So, but not only that, the history repeats itself. If we go back 56 million years ago, this is in Polocat Bench in Wyoming, and we are going to see that in the history of life, there has been many warming events, or at least some warming events like the one that we are facing today. 56 million years ago, one of the most important warming events on Earth happened, and that was also because of greenhouse effect. So the memory of the Earth, it's not only accurate, but it's also very useful to understand how different warming events of the past has worked, and to understand which were the consequences of those warming events, which were the consequences for the biota of those warming events. And related to these climatic variations that we all know that are natural, we also have some important sea level variations. We know that just during the last glaciation, so just about 20,000 years, at least in the Cantabrian coast, the sea level used to be about 100 meters lower than today, and that it has recovered his, let's say, natural position, 100 meters, in just 20,000 years. And doing that, it has been eroding different levels of cliffs. So understanding how the sea level reacts to these climatic variations, it's also a very, very useful information that the memory of the Earth will bring us in order to be able to adapt. It is very nice to see how life has been adapting to these variations. Life had no problem at all to adapt. When the sea level went down, life estuaries went down slowly. When the sea level came up, estuaries went up slowly. But life had always the capacity to adapt to those changes. The problem is what we are going to do. How long are we going to be building dams like this? So, or are we going to be able to adapt like life has been doing in the last thousands of years? So again, the memory of the Earth, understanding how the system works, it's absolutely crucial in order to planify our infrastructures to, let's say, face some of the most important challenges that we have in the future. So when we are talking about the memory of the Earth, we are basically talking about geological heritage. So that's my view. And I would say that the recognition of geological heritage, it's quite ancient. It comes from long ago. And I like to go back to this picture, to this quotation of John Muir. And it's from the beginning of the 20th century. And he said, or he wrote, "As long as I live, I will hear waterfalls and birds and winds sing. I will interpret the rocks, learn the language of floods, storms, and avalanches. I'll acquaint myself with glaciers and wild gardens, and get as near to the heart of the world as I can." This is in the core of the foundation of national parks in the United States. And national parks in the United States are one of the flags of geoconservation, I would say. And as we can see, already at the beginning of the 20th century, let's say at the first stages of the conservation of nature in some of the most iconic programs of the world, which is national parks in the United States. Geology is present, probably not called geoconservation, but geology, the appreciation of geology, it's present already at that time. But if we want to come, let's say, closer and more specifically related to geological heritage, again, as Lars said, I think we need to go to the Ding Declaration. So that today this year, we are celebrating the 30th anniversary. And in that declaration, it's so beautiful to see how now it is time for us to learn, to protect, and by protecting, to learn about the past of the Earth, this memory from before the mankind's memory, which is a new heritage, the geological heritage. I think that the Ding Declaration is probably I would say the first specific declaration recognition to the memory of the Earth. But apart from that, apart from the recognition of the, let's say, scientific community that was present in Ding, I would say that there is a very important recognition, social recognition of the geological heritage, or at least of some of the most important geological landscapes of the world. Those landscapes, the ones you have in your screen now, or many others, are one of the most important touristic destinations of the world. There are millions of people that decide to spend their time, their money, to go on holidays to visit these places. So it really means that there are millions of people that they do appreciate the landscape that they have in front of them. Or even if we go to the 7 natural wonders of the world, that, as you know, they are selected by a popular voting, I would say clearly that at least 4 out of 7 are clearly geological. So when you ask, to the population here in Europe, and I would say in any other part of the world, which are the most important natural wonders for them, geology will be very, very, very present. But apart from that, we need to have an institutional recognition. That's very important. We need to have an institutional recognition, especially if we want to work on geoconservation. I would say that at present, there are 3 global brands, mainly 3 global brands for the recognition of geological heritage. First one, and probably the oldest, it's World Heritage Convention. So there are 252 natural sites, and of which 93 sites are related to earth sciences and distributed in 51 countries. As you know, World Heritage are, let's say, these best places or outstanding value. So I would say that some of the most special places of geological heritage can be recognized by this brand. Then we have UNESCO Global Geoparks. UNESCO Global Geoparks, I think I will develop this idea a bit later, but UNESCO Global Geoparks, today we have, I think it's one of the most successful program for earth sciences in the last decades. We have up to now 169 UNESCO Global Geoparks in the world in 44 countries and only in 20 years. And finally, now we have again the IUGS Global Geosites program for the recognition of geological heritage sites of scientific international importance. So I think these 3 different ways of recognition cover very well all the necessities and different ways and different approaches for the recognition of geological heritage. As you know, IUGS Global Geosites program was started back in the 90s, and it worked during a couple of decades, but let's say it did not succeed globally. There were some countries in which the program was fully developed, like for example Spain, but it did not succeed globally. Now we are going to make a new attempt to reactivate this program, including UNESCO Global Geoparks, which is a new actor that did not exist back in the 90s. So I'd like to give you a bit of more information about this program. So the main goal of IUGS Global Geosites is the establishment of an international program for the scientific recognition of geological heritage sites at a global scale. We do not aim to make a new inventory, to be representative. We only want to establish the criteria for the international recognition of geological sites at a global scale. Why are we going to do this? Why IUGS has been involved in this important duty? Because there is a clear need to do it and a clear demand to do it. It has to be done with a uniform criteria, and it has to be done by the scientific organization of high international recognition and distribution. Which kind of interest are we going to recognize? We are only going to recognize scientific interest. IUGS is the most important organization for earth sciences. So we are going to recognize only geological heritage sites, IUGS geosites of scientific interest. Those places, key sites that has been important for the development of geological sciences. Which kind of sites? So all kind of geological sites. I mean, tectonic, stratigraphic, paleontologic, geomorphologic, petrologic, mineralogic, all kind of geological sites. Who is behind this program? IUGS, it's leading the program, but with a very close collaboration with the Global Geoparks Network and UNESCO International Geoscience program. And this is, I think, the most important strength of this program at the moment, 52 recognized scientists from universities, geological services, and UNESCO Global Geoparks from 30 different countries with a very broad distribution in 5 continents. Now we have started to have some initial contacts with IUCN. I hope we can also do it with ProGeo to see which is the best way by which IUCN and ProGeo, which are crucial actors on the development of geoconservation, can be included in this, I would say, exciting opportunity. How are we going to do it? We are going to keep it as simple as possible. We have 4 years to do it, or at least we have 4 years to define it. So during the first year, which is 2021, we have to work on the definition of the main criteria. We need to define the guidelines. We need to define the application process. We need to define the evaluation process. We need to define how the recognition is going to be made. We need to define, for example, how the celebration of those places are going to be celebrated. The year 2022 is going to be crucial. And first, we will start selecting the 52 scientist participants of the program. We will start selecting 100 geosites with a very broad distribution. IUGS will make a very broad call for IUGS evaluators. It will be done through all the members of IUGS, all the geological services, and we would like to have evaluators from almost every country in the world. These evaluators will work for IUGS Global Geosite program, but will also work for a very important duty that IUGS is doing for UNESCO Global Geoparks, which is the assessment of the geological heritage of international significance of new aspiring UNESCO Global Geoparks. So also, once we have selected these first 100 geosites, we will have to work on the application of the assessment criteria. We'll have to open a debate. We'll have to talk a lot. And at the end of the year 2022, probably November 22, we will be organizing an international geoheritage conference in which the program will be, let's say, institutionally accepted, and the first 100 IUGS Global Geosites will be defined. These first 100 IUGS Global Geosites will be the ones that be very useful for the definition of what an IUGS Global Geosite will have a very broad distribution and will be different kinds of geosites. And the year 3 and 4, so 2023, 2024, will be for the expansion of the program to those countries that did not participate in this first stage, or those geoparks that did not participate in this first stage. We will have to organize training courses for these new countries, and we will have to activate a first ordinary application let's say, the application process and the assessment process for the recognition of IUGS Global Geosites. So I would like to take the opportunity also to talk about the new IUGS International Commission on Geoheritage, which will be the one in charge of managing, let's say, this challenging program. So the main aim of the International Commission on Geoheritage is the recognition of three things: global geosites, global geocollections, and global stone heritage resources. That's our main goal. So IUGS is not that much interested on geoeducation, on geoconservation, on geotourism, on local development. There are other things, other brands that can work on that disciplines. IUGS, it's a scientific organization, and it's interested basically on the recognition, scientific international recognition of sites, collections, and stone resources. So for that, the International Commission on Geoheritage is divided into three subcommissions, which is the subcommission on sites, subcommission on collections, and subcommission on stone resources. So apart from this institutional recognition, if we have a look, I would say that we never had such a good ingredient to go ahead. We had related to geoheritage, I mean, geoconservation. We have geoheritage has become, as I said before, has become into a priority for the International Union of Geological Sciences. We have a World Heritage Program, which is working very properly with outstanding geological places. The IGCP project, the IGCP program, it's now open to host different research projects related to geoheritage. The UNESCO Global Geoparks program, it's a very successful program. The Global Geoparks network, it's growing and growing and growing. We have scientific publications, like, for example, Geoheritage, but there are many others. But we have already a very top-level scientific publications. We have international associations or European international associations like ProGeo. We have, I would say, hundreds of national or regional initiatives related to geoheritage, related to geoconservation. We have a working group on the IUCN on geological heritage. So we really have all the ingredients that we need to go forward. So the only thing we need is to have a good cooperation, to have a good organization. And I think organization is even more important than cooperation. Every cooperation should be based on the recognition of the role of each of the partners. So each of the partners should have very clearly, should assume very clearly, accept very clearly, which is the role of each of the partners. So by doing that, we can open all the grounds for collaboration, for cooperation. We need to work together on communication. We need to have confidence one to each other. We need to have confidence, and we need to understand that the way that things can be done can be different. So there is not only one way to do things. So if we do not accept that each of the partners should be focused on one aim, we will lose efficiency. We will lose a work capacity. And I think that above all, we have to take into account that above everything is the common benefit. The common benefit is always above the interest or the benefit of each of the organizations that could take part in this cooperation. So really, I think that we have very good reasons to be optimistic. And just to finish, people. I've been now more than 10 years working in UNESCO Global Geoparks, and I understood that people is the most important thing. And I think that that's the main reason why UNESCO Global Geoparks have succeeded that much in the last decades. We had 169 UNESCO Global Geoparks in 44 countries and in only 20 years. This is a huge adventure. This is a huge adventure in which we have been adapting to the new circumstances all the time. But it shows that UNESCO Global Geoparks are basically a very good idea. UNESCO Global Geoparks are basically a very, very good idea. And what does make UNESCO Global Geoparks different? I think that basically this: people. The UNESCO Global Geoparks are focused on the sustainable development goals. We do not talk just about geology. We do not talk just about the memory of the earth. We are trying to link the memory of the earth, let's say, with the future of the people based on the sustainable development goals. And this is very important. So when we say that geoparks are about people, we can demonstrate that geoparks can really bring real benefits in many of the sustainable development goals. But when we say that geoparks are about people, I have to admit, I'm a geologist, and I have to admit that at the beginning, when I started to work in the Global Geoparks Network, I have to admit that very clear sentence, geoparks are about people, did not like me that much. I'm a geologist, so I wanted to see rocks in front. I wanted to see geology as a first idea. And having geology in the second place and putting the people in front, I have to accept that I didn't like, well, it was not easy for me to accept it. But with time, I have seen that it has been the best idea. I have seen that putting the people in front has been the most effective way to work on geoconservation. Geoparks are about people. Geoparks are about the local development of the people, are about linking the geological heritage, the memory of the earth with the people living in those territories. Geoparks are also about the culture, about the intangible culture of those territories. Geoparks are about education. Geoparks are territories with future. Geoparks work with our children. There are hundreds of geo schools distributed in all the world that cooperate, and we can really offer very, very interesting possibilities, for example, to children like this in Rio Coco in Nicaragua. Geoparks are territories of ongoing training, so training local people to have new opportunities, to be innovative. Geoparks are very much connected with local products, so it's not only geology, it's local products linked to the earth. Geoparks are territories of geotourism. Geoparks are territories to understand the landscape from the abiotic, from the biotic, and from the cultural point of view. Geoparks are territories in which geotourism brings really important benefits, even economical benefits. Geoparks are territories to explore, in which we have a lot of possibilities to explore. It's not just science, it's not just recognition of places. Then we need to show the way, and we need to give possibilities to visitors to explore that memory of the earth through beautiful stories like the one that I'm telling here to this group. And above all, I would say that geoparks are territories that make people be proud of the place where I'm living. So I am proud of my geopark. I am proud of being part of UNESCO. I am proud of being part of this network. So by doing this, by putting people in front, we have really had more possibilities to work on science and geoconservation than we never had before. So putting people in front, it's a very, very intelligent strategy to work on science and to work on geoconservation. And apart from that, I think one of the important keys of the success of UNESCO Global Geoparks is networking, that we always took care one to each other. Even now, during the pandemic times, that we could not travel, we could not meet each other, we have organized dozens of seminars just to see how things are being done in different places. And geoparks, just to finish, are territories of action and territories of adaptation. And it means that every 4 years, UNESCO Global Geoparks are evaluated. And this is something very important because it puts you in the obligation to act. You need to do things. You need to have a strategic plan. You need to show that you are really working and you are really improving. And Geoparks are also territories that adapt to the new circumstances. And for example, this is, was very, very glad to write also this paper with my colleagues, UNESCO Global Geoparks in the world after, a multiple goal roadmap proposal for future discussion. The world has changed after the pandemic, and geoparks want to be adapted to this new world in the future. And above all, not only geoparks, I would say all the community working on geoheritage, we should think about passion. We have to think also about methodologies. We have to think about institutions. We have to think about all those things, about science. But if we are not able to connect through our passion to really show that rocks connect us, we will not succeed. So thank you very much for your attention.
Hello, Asier. Thank you very much for your really brilliant presentation. It's for us a pleasure to be here in this way this year, but now, if you like, there are some questions.
Hello.
I just want to thank you very much for a very good presentation. I liked it, the perspectives, and I'm highly interested in your perspective for organization and cooperation. And I wish you and all parties here the best of luck in doing so. Have you more thoughts about how actually to make it happen? Just practically.
I think it's not my responsibility. It's all our responsibility. I think we have the chance to do it. I think we never had so many good ingredients to go ahead, and I think the only way to achieve this beautiful challenge of, in this case, IUGS Global Geosites, it's by talking, and it's by really seeing which is the contribution of each one. And obviously, the program just started, so or just reactivated from the past. So we are absolutely open for the inclusion of everyone. But I think that what I said in my conference, I thought a lot about this. I think it is very. Every collaboration should be based on the recognition of the role of each of the partners and the role of the others. And I have the feeling that on Geoheritage, many people are doing the same things, or many different institutions, organizations, or associations are working on the same perspectives, issues. And that's fine, but we should think that it would be better if we say, good, you should focus more on this, you should focus more on geoconservation, you should focus more on the local development, you should be more focused on the scientific recognition, you should be more focused on the scientific widespread, you should be more focused on the, let's say, social widespread of the knowledge, blah, blah, blah. And I think that's a reflection that I think it's quite natural. So I think it's a reflection that we need to do just by talking.
Thank you. Yes, I agree. We need to talk, and it's many people here that are interested. So we have some work to do in just communicate and organize. I think we have good opportunities, as you say, and I hope we will be able to actually move these things forward. I think the possibility is there, as you say.
Thank you, Lars.
One more question, Asier. If you like, I can read it. What's the paper of geologists briefly in this geoconservation and geoheritage strategy? Because geologists seem to be underappreciated in spite of tourist guides and such. This is a question for one person.
Well, I would say that the role of geologists is basically to read, to understand the memory of the Earth. There is not a good speech, there is not a good communication, there is not a good interpretation. A good communication and a good interpretation of geological features can be done by someone who is not geologist, obviously. But there is not a good speech if there is not a truth. And the truth of the memory of the Earth can be only taken out by geologists. And if you permit me, I have worked like a guide for a long time, like a geotouristic guide. And I can accept that a good communication and a good interpretation can be done by someone who is not geologist. But a geologist who is able to communicate with passion will have always something extra, an extra value. And that's what we have to achieve. That's what we have to use.
Okay, and the last one. Could you please tell us more about the preliminary criteria that you are choosing for global geosite selection?
I wish I could, but I'm sorry I cannot, because they have not been still defined. Now the project has been just accepted, so we were communicated just I'd say 3 months ago that the IGCP project was accepted. Now we are organizing all the group. As you saw, I think I would say the first great achievement of this program has been the possibility to include 52 professionals of geoheritage from 30 different countries. That's already a great achievement. And now what we are doing is we are organizing the different working groups and workflows so that the program can be, let's say, effective in a short time that we have. So we are talking about 3-4 years. So by the end of this year, we should be able to answer to these questions with a high detail, because all the criteria, the guidelines, the application process and the assessment process should be defined by the end of this year. But obviously you can understand that that the working groups has not still started to work, so I cannot say anything else than that.
Okay, Asier, thank you very much again. We are really happy that you are here with us. Thank you, Asier. We are with you.
Thank you, Juana. Thank you all.